Folks, I hope this video will help you, whether you're an adult learner, a parent helping a child, or a child who's watching these videos to try to figure out some of these songs in Suzuki Book 1. It's a great bunch of songs to learn the basics of playing the piano. So I hope this video helps you a lot. And if you have any questions, please leave them down there in the comments, and I will try to answer them or do follow-up videos to help you. Hi, everyone. In this video, I'm going to go through every song in Suzuki Book 1, hands together, and point out the places that students typically have trouble. And I'm going to start with the song Cuckoo. One problem that students have is right at the end of the second line when it goes like this. 1, 2, 3, and then getting started on that third line like I just did. So I'm starting about the seventh measure. 1, 2, 3, and then going on. Another problem that students have, it's easy to play legato in this piece. In other words, connect the notes. Until you get to the third line. On the third line, you have two repeated notes with your right hand. Now, it's not really possible to connect two repeated notes. There's always going to be a little space in between, like that. And what happens is the left hand starts to copy the right hand and goes like this instead of connecting. And you can connect there. What you do is you play the first note, lift the right hand a little bit, and then play the second note. And make sure you keep holding the left hand down. So it's like this, together, lift right hand, hold the left hand down, get ready on the next note, and play. So that little spot, lift, ready, go. And then you can put it together like that. The same thing happens halfway through the third line, measure 11. Now, of course, you want to try to connect these two notes. And, you can really get them very close. But to learn how to play repeated notes and keep the left hand legato, purposefully lifting your right hand and then playing again like this will help you master that technique. Now, in the last line, everything is easy to play legato. But notice the first measure of the last line. It's exactly like the last measure of the third line. So students often will leave one of these measures out. Playing the third line, and then the fourth line. Give it a little extra sound. Give that fourth line a little extra sound right there at the beginning so it sounds like the next phrase. Okay, Lightly Row is full of repeated notes with the right hand. So at the very beginning, you can play first two notes legato, but then you've got to lift your right hand, keep the left hand down, and then play the next couple of notes. As you get better at it, you can start trying to connect the right hand, but don't let the left hand become unconnected. Same thing in that measure, then an easy measure, and then 3 repeated notes. Lift, lift, lift. French children's song has repeated notes right at the beginning, but if you've mastered keeping your left hand connected, this should not be a problem, but you might have to work on it a little bit. Right there, you have to then lift the right hand, lift again, and then it's easy to connect here. And a good spot to practice is measure 7 and 8. Now the next section, which we'll call the B section, is not hard to put together, but you need to know the patterns in the left hand, the F pattern, the C pattern. These are Alberti patterns, they call them. So a good way to put hands together here is to take it one measure at a time. Think about what the right hand does. Re, re, re. Next one. Mi, do, mi. And fa, re, fa. Like that. Next song, London Bridge. This one, the main challenge here is the rhythm. The right hand has, a dotted quarter note and then an eighth note, and the left hand just has quarter notes. So it goes together like this. Okay, so it's 1, 2, and 3, like that. You want to go very slowly. Together, left, right, together. After that, it's pretty easy. The same rhythm again. And then the last spot, if you go with the thumb here, you have to move your pinky down to G here. But there's different fingerings you can use there. So, Mary Lamb, next song. Again, we want to connect the right hand while the left hand lifts. So it's kind of the opposite of what we were just doing. Let's put it hands together. Now you have to lift your left hand to play that chord again, but what usually happens is students will lift both hands. And then the right hand, you see, was not connected. So we want the right hand connected like that. So do it this way. Stop right there and lift your left hand, but keep your right hand down, then go to the next measure. You can do this all the way through the song. Now lift the left hand. Lift only the left hand. Go tell Aunt Rhody. We have a new pattern in the left hand. In the second line, we go up to C, A, F, A, right there. And you should change your fingering. We've been using mostly 5, 1, 3, 1. But make sure when you go up here, you use your second finger there. And practice going back and forth. Now here we have lots of repeated notes, but another problem that students have is like on the very first note, as they play their left hand, they will lift their right hand and not really hold that quarter note down long enough. So you want to try to do like this. Rather than this. And I will say that in order to do that well, you really have to master this idea of keeping the left hand legato and playing repeated notes with the right hand back in songs like Lightly Row. So, all right, and then students will forget sometimes. They have to, in the second line, they have to move their hand up. Now start on E. Okay, Clair De Lune. The left hand has an interesting spot down there at measure 8. It's okay, and that's the first note of measure 9 also. But you start with 3, 3, 1, then put your 2 there on the same note that your 3 was just on. Then down to C and down to B. And while you're doing that, the right hand has to get ready in a new location. In the first line, Now right there on the third measure, students often want to go like this and play both of those notes in the left hand when they should just hold it. All right, second line. And move down here with the right hand. Move back. Now right there, notice the left hand is different. It's the same melodies we had in the first two lines, but the left hand changes. But a lot of that is what we call parallel motion. You have the first two notes, and then watch what happens. That's parallel. We're moving in the same direction with both hands. And that's one of my favorite songs in the book, Clair De Lune. Long, long ago, if you get lost in the first two measures, it's very difficult to restart, so you kind of have to do it right. So the right hand has to switch. 3, 2, and this is about the point that students will get lost, and then they try to start here by doing an Alberti pattern with it like this. But see, that's not the beginning of the Alberti pattern. That's halfway through the Alberti, the left-hand Alberti pattern. So slowly, here it is. Right hand shifts a little bit to get 5 on G. And notice the left hand has two different patterns there. And then the fourth measure. Okay, second line starts pretty much the same way. Switch. Get your 5 ready. Right there in those last two measures that I just played, there is what you call a dissonance. Two notes that are played together that by themselves don't sound that good. So listen. Right there. A lot of students will think that's wrong. Parents will think that's wrong. I mean, listen to this interval. You know, it's a dissonant interval, but it goes by quickly, and it's within the context of this chord. So, okay, the third line, same thing goes twice here. Sorry. Now, Suzuki teachers like you to keep a good hand position and not really connect here, but a lot of students will try to connect it, and that's okay. Sorry. Okay, little Playmates. Let's see, we've got some chords to play. And chords can be difficult for a student, a young student, that is. You're trying to hold 2 and 4 up so they don't play. And then you have this other chord, 1, 2, and 5, like that. So, you want to practice going back and forth between these two chords. And also, the left hand has to play quickly in the second line. All right, so notice I'm curving my fingers. If you play like this, it's going to sound not as good. So curve your fingers. You can practice twinkle on each note to get your fingers moving, but hold your fingers in a good position. Okay, so here's the song Hands Together. And right there between measure 3 and 4 is a place that you have to lift your left hand but not your right. in order to keep it connected. Curve your fingers in this hand. It'll help you curve them in this hand on the next line. Yeah, with one hand does something, the other hand likes to copy it. So curve your fingers on both hands. And then back to these chords. Lift and play. Wow, this old Suzuki book has staccato there. Interesting. Next line, you have two places you need to connect. Here and here. So by lifting the left hand and keeping the right hand down, you can achieve that. And write in some finger numbers. 2, 4, 3, 5, like there. Make sure that first note's longer than the rest of them. Sorry. Okay. Chant Arabe. Again, the rhythm could be a little tricky for some students. 1, 2, and 3. Very similar to London Bridge. If you can get the first two measures, the rest of the A section is pretty easy. Let's go down to the other part. Now, most kids can't reach an octave. I would suggest practicing it like this. So curve your fifth finger. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The right hand can be kind of difficult to learn. Think of two measures first. Next phrase. And let me just say this now, that the major fatal flaw about the Suzuki method is that students are not encouraged to read very much when they're in book 1. And then by the time they get to book 2, they are behind in their reading. So this is a good song to look at the music and figure out how things fit together. So let's take that third line. And you can even take your music. You could take your book like this, and you can draw some lines about like what two notes go together, things like that. When you have eighth notes here, I don't know if you can see that. These two go together, those two go together. In the last line, and it's not really the last line of the song because you go back and repeat the first two lines, but on the bottom line there, the last two measures, we have a lot of eighth notes here. Some teachers will call that the snake spot because of the way it kind of curves this way, kind of like a snake in the grass. And then hands together. You practice that right hand a lot. And then the left hand, the rhythm's a little different. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And very slowly, hands together. That's the first part. Let's do the whole thing now, last two measures. And then back to the beginning. Okay. Allegretto 1. This is an important song because it's one of the few that have broken chords rather than Alberti patterns. This is a chord, and we call this a broken chord. And it goes rather quickly, too. The hardest part is right at the end, when you have kind of the same melody. But the left hand has to jump from this pattern down to this one. All right, G, B, F. And you have to practice doing that. Like that. You can maybe just do one pattern. And one down there, and then you have to come back. So last 8 measures, hands together, slowly. And you can't be afraid to jump down there. You just got to go for it. You're going to miss it sometimes. This is going to happen. You know, you're going to miss the note, but you know, that's okay. You miss it a few times, and then your hand starts to learn where to go. Another very useful technique, and this is starting to get a little advanced, it's called a thought pause. You stop and think about what you're going to do, get ready to do it, and then do it. So the last 8 measures with a thought pause, and Suzuki teachers call this stop and prepare. Stop, get ready. If you can't reach the note, just go down there and then go. Maybe another thought pause there. Goodbye to winter. And this would be another one too, to write in the first measure, to maybe draw little lines between the notes that actually get played at the same time. You know, you connect those two and then those two again with the G in between. Second line can be a little tricky. It's contrary motion, but not exactly. I mean, you've got 3 notes that go in different directions. And then the right hand plays the same note and the left hand keeps going down. So this can be hard to do the first couple of times you try it. And then a similar 2 measures. And don't be afraid to write some finger numbers there in your book. It will help you put these lines together. Third line. Now, I have noticed that students typically have a difficult time finishing the second line and going right into the third line. So here's the second line again, going directly into the third line. All right, Allegretto 2. Best advice is to practice each hand until you could do these 16th notes. Those are the ones with the double bars across them, right there at the beginning. You don't want any sloppiness. Fingers down like that's not going to work. You want it very clean sounding. All right, and students will typically start going too fast on the 8th notes, like they'll go fast here, and then start going real fast on those. That's not the way to do it. And then the left hand has got to be equally good. And you'll find that sometimes it's easier to go up or sometimes it's easier to go down depending on which hand it is. So in the second line, you've got one going up. Watch that pinky. You know, there's several approaches to this. You can do the kind of the Suzuki method of moving your finger this way, but just curving your finger is the most important thing. You can do a little bit of rotation with your wrist too to help it happen, like this. But if you can't do it really perfectly fast, you must practice it slowly. So here's a fast one, and here's a slow one. Oh, I did the last line there, didn't I? Should have gone. And the last line does have the most 16th notes in a row right here at the very end. So always listen to these spots with the 16th notes. The hands, if they're playing together, have to be perfectly in sync with each other. You can't have one hand going, faster than the other and have a sound like this. You can't have that. It's got to be very perfectly together, like that. And if you can't do it really perfectly, slow down and practice it until you can. Christmas Day Secrets. This is probably the most kind of complicated one. Musette is also a little complicated, but the middle section is challenging to put together. But if you've gotten this far in the book, it's just another little step. So let's give it a look here. Okay, typical mistake students make is playing the first note and then holding the second note to keep it, connected with the next part. But there's two rests there, so it's down, up, like that. And, let the students look at the book there and figure out how this fits together. Write in finger numbers if you need to. And another common mistake there in the second measure is not to play two staccato notes. You want two staccato notes there. And you want two staccato notes there. The last note, is not as important to play staccato. You can if you want to. So the mistake is holding there and then going and holding again. A better way. Okay, that's most of the song, but the middle part, here's the left hand and the right hand. Okay, the main problem is students have trouble with this fingering. So you're starting with 1-3 here, not 1-3 there, but 1-3 like that. And then put your 5 down here. 5, 2, 1, 3 is what the book says. I recently had a student just go 5, 3, 2, 3, and that works pretty well too if you want to try that. But 5, 2, 1, 3, and here's what the left hand's doing. 5, 2, 1, 3, and then the left hand has to put its thumb under, and both thumbs are playing at the same time here. The left hand goes down to a D, not to a C where you might think, but down to a D, and the right hand goes up to a D. And then you're back in here. All right, so I'll just do it quietly a few times. Those last two measures really slowly. Allegro. Cross with 3, that's the big deal there. And you have to learn these 3 chords. So here they are, a G major. This is actually C major, but the G is on the bottom. And then this one is what you call the dominant 7th chord. It's really a D7th. All right, you don't really need to know any of that to learn this song, but there you go. And 1, 3, 5 here, 1, 2, 5 on this one, and 1, 2, 5 on this one also. So make sure the fingering is correct. Now, most Suzuki books now have this staccato, but I've got the original from like way back here in 1972 or something, and there's no staccato marks over those eighth notes there. So, there's nothing wrong with playing it this way. Kind of sounds better. Or you can do it staccato. I think staccato is harder, so I usually have my students do it that way. It's like a little dance. Where's Benny? Come on, Benny, let's do the dancing here. He loves to dance. I love to dance, yes I do. Middle part. There's a skip here. You're on 2, you think 1's going to be the next note, but you got to skip and then cross over. And then wait, wait, wait. Then go. All right, just having a little fun. On to Musette in 6/8 time. So, students that are old enough to understand this, you don't count 1 on a quarter note anymore. You count 2 beats on a quarter note. The 8 on the bottom of the time signature means that the 8th notes, these, each get 1 beat. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 together. So the left hand, you have to do that and reach in to play that, okay? Reach in so you're not twisting like that. So reach your hand in. You can start at the beginning of the line by reaching in. And then it's easy to play these because your thumb is already in there. So you just do this pattern once, and then it slightly changes to that, and then back to the original pattern. Then move up about 5 notes, put your pinky where your thumb was, and the left hand, you have to reach up with your 3rd finger here. So hands together, keep that in mind. And this is a hard spot. Make sure you know the left hand. It is possible to connect some notes here, but not necessary. And keep the right hand fingering as 1, 2, 1, 2. Students mess that up a lot, so you do the thumb twice here, and then 2nd finger there on the left hand. And that's a quarter note, so you wait longer there. And then you've got an 8th note first, so that goes pretty quickly. And down to there. You hold on to that bottom note because that's actually a tie. The last measure there in the 2nd line, you're playing these 2 notes, but just switch from this one to that one and hold the A down because it's tied. Ties look a lot like, slurs. But if it's 2 different notes, it can't be a tie. But if it's the same note, like the A there on the bottom, it's a tie. Okay, that's book 1. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments. I will be monitoring this video for a couple of weeks to see if you have any questions about it. All right, that's it for now. Thanks very much, folks. Bye.